So good morning. It's already past 10, so I think we can start our webinar, Smart Sustainable Solutions. So just a reminder that I have gave already, but you have the interpretation icon here on your screen. So please select your correct language option. So just to avoid any problems with the translation with the right channel. So if you're going to speak in English, please just select English. And of course, on the other hand as well, if you're going to speak Portuguese, please select Portuguese. We are very glad that we have you here today. I'm Bruno Lenio. I'm from Innovasjon Norge, the organizing partner of Nordic Dialogues program that represents joint effort from the 4 Nordic embassies in Brazil, being in Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Norway. The Norway Tech Day is organized already for 5 years, and this year we are very glad to have a Nordic event instead, where it can showcase the Nordic smart sustainable solutions. So for starting the program, we are going to see a small video to start with a big welcome from the Nordic embassies.
Oh.
I think Anna will play the video soon, yeah. And after the video, we are going to have the final welcoming words from the Swedish ambassador, Johanna.
Deputy Head of the Embassy.
Welcome to the Nordic Tech Day 2020, Smart Sustainable Solutions.
We look very much forward to share sustainable Nordic practices with you today, and we hope also to inspire you to work for an even more sustainable Brazil.
Check out Finnish energy innovations.
Tune in on the Norwegian revolutionary and innovative solutions on mobility. Enjoy the Nordic Tech Day.
Great. We are very pleased also to have Ambassador Johanna Brismar Skog representing the 4 Nordic countries for the opening words of this webinar. Please, Johanna.
Thank you very much, Bruno. And dear participants, on behalf of the Nordic countries, I'm happy to welcome you to this event, which is held within the framework of the Nordic Dialogues. And the theme this year for the Nordic Dialogues is sustainability. And this is actually a trademark for the Nordic countries. And as you may know, the Nordic Council has set the goal that by 2030, the Nordic region will be the most sustainable and integrated region in the world. Combining Tech Day with the discussion on greener, more sustainable future is particularly fitting this year, as the pandemic has made us all reflect over how we want to rebuild our societies once we get back to business. New technology is actually in many ways a precondition for the transition to sustainable new way of living. Technology and sustainability mindset can be mutually reinforcing, and it can both contribute to faster economic development if managed correctly. New innovative solutions have saved energy, resources, and lives, while at the same time creating better and more employment opportunities and a safer environment for future generations. The Nordic countries are living proof of this, that this is true. Between 1990 and 2011, greenhouse gas emissions decreased by 9% on average in the Nordic region, while we increased our GDP by 55%. we are now well underway to achieve our very ambitious environmental and climate goals. At the same time that we're also enjoying dynamic economic growth, and we also rank among the most innovative societies in the world. Today, we will talk about 3 important areas for constructing a more sustainable society: sustainable architecture, how to build cities that are truly future smart, how to ensure that our energy is green and renewable, and how to make transport and mobility more long-term sustainable. Actually, the UN Economic Commission for Latin America, ECLAT, has concluded that if current trends continue, transitioning to renewable energy and sustainable mobility in the Latin American region could together create over 12 million jobs. I hope you will enjoy today's presentations, and the Nordic countries here in Brazil, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and my own country, Sweden, are ready to continue this important dialogue with you on sustainability. Thank you so much and have a great seminar. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Johanna, for the kind and inspiring words for starting this webinar. We are going now to pass for the first Nordic case that we'd like to showcase concerning urban planning, smart and sustainable architecture. So for this first case, we would like to invite Mrs. Alejandra De Becchi that has a presentation with the title Blue-Green Architecture Landscape Planning. Please, Alejandra.
Bom dia a todos.
Good morning, everyone. My presentation will be specifically... Can you see my video, my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Alejandra.
Sim, nós conseguimos ver a sua tela. So my presentation will be on solutions based on nature. That is a concept that is recent, involving solutions to solve the problems of climate change, allowing the cities to add the presence of water to the drain solutions. That is, if in the past the drainage equation would leave water away, today the solutions incentive constant use of water in all the solutions. And I will bring this discussion presenting some points that that is the company that I represent has developed over the world. This discussion is important to be contextualized in the understanding. Okay, my presentation is not working.
Bom, eu vou colocar a tela dessa forma.
So I'll have the screen this way because the presentation is not working. Now it's okay. So this discussion has to be contextualized in the understanding of the urban expansion process. If we consider the metropolitan region of São Paulo, for example, we have a situation where urbanism grows more than necessary when compared to the population growth. Here in this chart, we have the 3 main lines with the growth of the urban area, and in the 3 next ones, the growth of the population. And what we see is that from 1990 to 2010, urban growth grew 2.35% a year, and the population only 1.61%. So what does it mean? It means that the demographic density of the city is decreasing. Many may think that the decrease in the demographic density is interesting, but this decrease is manifested in peripheric occupation of this kind. I mean, with no planning, invading areas of service provision, and in the area of the Manancials, in the area of São Paulo. Here we can see the Várzea of Tietê River. So when we think about solutions based on nature, we need to think that the background for that is this way of occupying the city. What about now? What can we do for that? When we add this situation to climate changes that in the metropolitan region in São Paulo are manifested with the concentration of rains during some part of the year, where we have one day raining the whole month, so we need to rethink of the infrastructure and calculation of infrastructure and how to implement it. And this is the big challenge. And even more importantly, if this challenge is emphasized as it is now with the pandemic. So the point here, we could say that in nature, we have 65 to 80% of the water being evaporated. In urban areas, the evaporation is only up to 30%. Most of them is flows. So we need to think about this drain equation to emulate the urban area, to get close to the behavior of nature. That is, try to increase the permeable areas, decreasing this flow. So if the cities were thought before as a big drainage that I need to eliminate water as fast as possible, today the challenge is to integrate water to the urban equation and work the city as if it is a big filter. So here we have a big scheme of how rivers are dealt. So we have rivers like Tietê and Pinheiros that had curves, and now they became a straight line so that the water flows faster. And the idea is to go back to the origin, to make the water more natural, to make the water in the site where it is generated. So here we have a picture of Pinheiro River before the rectification of the river. So you see all the final, all the curves that it have, and then you have the straight line that it is today. This is a very inspiring image of Pinheiros River next to the Club Pinheiros, in the area used for leisure. So the climate changes put us with some opportunity to rethink this paradigm, to rethink the infrastructure and integrate water to the urban context. So how can we do that? In Denmark, people are masters on that. They develop different strategies and solutions based on the nature with different scales and in different situations. So here in the left, we have a traditional city where water is taken away constantly, and in the right, solutions for possible dealings, solutions that are thought in urban scale and in square scale and building scale. And these strategies are thought also in the surface, in the surface of the city, let's say, and in the underground of the city. So when we combine the 6 variables and we think about solutions combining quality control and quantity control of water, we have many solutions that may bring a lot of richness to the projects and completely change the urban face. So here we have some solutions of how to deal with water in neighborhood scale in the surface sphere. So we have solutions of urban trees and small pools related to tree planting and drain gardens and small water reservoirs in the squares. the green roofs on the buildings, different solutions for this discussion of solving this equation. So we have many pictures here of this kind of solutions to solve the water equation in the underground situation. And I would emphasize here a park that Humboldt, that is the author, presented in Singapore with 62 hectares, where we see that the park was first thought in the context of the basin to understand the role that the park has in this equation. And from that understanding, there was the proposal of the renaturalization of the stream that was there in a straight line with a cement, in a cemented way. And here we have the channel of this stream, and the proposal was to renaturalize this stream, bringing water to the daily lives of people. So here, all the process of renaturalization. And the park solves some strategies like the flood control and erosion control, water purification, water filtration and retention, and the community engagement. So here we have the solutions to control flood. So today, the stream is renaturalized and it can take more than 40% of the water. Then the treatment of erosion was made with a bioengineering solutions, and we have many solutions in this sense. We also thought about water purification with treatment with plants. So here's an image of the treatment area of the park. And that's it. This is a very short presentation. In case you have doubts, I have more details to present to you. Thank you.
Muito obrigado. Thank you very much, Alejandra, for a very interesting presentation about the blue-green architecture. It says that now Jamila Tavares and Laura Nilsson have some questions, Alejandra. So we'd like to invite Jamila and Laura for presenting or addressing those questions.
Bom dia, Alejandra. Tudo bem?
Tudo bom.
Good morning, Alejandra. This is Jamila from Denmark Embassy. My first question is there any Brazilian city using this mechanism of drainage and reuse of water in a more interesting way in the city? Well, the city of São Paulo has a program called Programa de Parques Lineares that can be understood as a program for solutions based on the nature. This program was created in such a way that it is with public policies, and I had the opportunity of participate in the implementation of this program. So the director plan identifies more than 230 areas in the city that are potentially rivers with the capacity of receiving this infrastructure. And from this identification, the Secretary of Environment created a plan to prioritize what would be the most adequate areas to receive this infrastructure. And this prioritization was carried out from the understanding of what would be the areas with more environmental services. So the prioritization was for the parks in the extremes of the cities, like the areas in Cantareira in the north, and the parks in the extreme east, like in River Aricanduva, and the parks surrounding the Manancials, like surrounding Bilis and Guarapiranga dams. So this was the prioritization, and many parks were implemented. Today, if you don't know, the city has more than 100 parks already installed and implanted, and part of the parks are of this kind, the Linha Park. So this is one side of São Paulo that just a few people know. We know the parks like in the center of the city, like Ibirapuera or Vila Lobos. And we don't know that the city has this system, this infrastructure. So São Paulo, despite all the problems, can count on something already ongoing in this sense.
This is Laura from the Danish Embassy too. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. Can I ask you if Rambo did the business case on these solutions? We know of several Brazilian cities that are having huge challenges with floodings every year, and that cost a lot of resources to deal with these floodings. So having more to deal with these floodings more upfront and integrate these solutions, sorry, for integrating the water, that might be a very good business case. Did you do this calculation?
Então, a Humble tem várias experiências.
So Humble has many experiences implemented, like this one that I showed in Singapore. Singapore, we had this analysis of basins where we understand what would be the most adequate place for the implementation of this study, and one is this park that is an international reference in this term of service. And also Humble has developed many interventions in Copenhagen and New York, and for sure we are working in this sense of offering this solution to different cities. Currently, we are participating in some opportunities along with the Inter-American Bank of Development, where we have incentives for the development.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any more questions? I don't think so, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Alejandra, for the clarifications and for the presentation. Just a reminder for the ones who entered after the beginning of the webinar, you can select your language channel just here in the middle of your screen. E para os que falam português, você pode, se tiver no canal errado,
and for those speaking Portuguese, you can select the language here.
So just as a reminder about the agenda, so we already had the welcoming words, the opening words from Ambassador Johanna Skog, and also now the first case from Nordic Smart Sustainable Solutions with Alejandra from Rambo about blue-green architecture landscape planning. So we just a reminder, because if you check our first agenda on the website, there was we had this Brazilian Cleantech scenario was the first presentation, but we just had to make a small change here in the order of the presentations, but we are going to have that at 10:45, so quarter to 11. And after that, we are going to have the case 3 with Swedish and Norwegian solutions on mobility. And after that, also the launching of the Brazilian transportation logistics sectorial report made by FGV Transportes. But now we are going to proceed with our webinar with the second very interesting case from the Nordics, smart and sustainable energy. And for that presentation, would like to invite Mr. Gabriel Cavados from Wärtsilä. And the topic of his presentation will be a path to energy transition in Brazil. Please, Gabriel.
Thank you, Bruno. Let me share my screen here. Could you please confirm to me, Bruno, that everything is working?
Yes, we can see your screen now and in presentation mode. Thank you.
Very good. Just open my video so you have a less pleasant experience. Dear friends, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. In these virtual days, we never know where the audience is located, so I try to cover most of the greeting options that I have. My name is Gabriel Cavados. I work for Wärtsilä in Brazil. I have a background on mechanical engineering and some background on the energy sector. I joined Wärtsilä back in 2009, and the fun story about Wärtsilä is that I was running against some candidates, and when the person that was interviewing asked if anybody knew Wärtsilä, I was the only student that actually knew, but not because I knew the company itself. It was because I saw it in the Discovery Channel, and Wärtsilä in the Discovery Channel was appearing as this big manufacturer of engines for these cruise ships, and the show was about the Queen Mary 2. So that's how I got to know the company, and Discovery Channel actually helped me to get the job when I was entering Wärtsilä. I did not enter into the marine business. I entered into the energy division with Wärtsilä, and in the energy division, we offer customers and power systems sustainable and smart solutions, mainly nowadays for integrating renewables into the power system. And that's the topic of the presentation. We are experiencing a great transition in energy markets, and this great transition is happening all over the places, from the generation to the decentralization to the mobility. We could talk probably 8 hours about this topic, but I will give a focus where I spend most of my time, which is the disruption that is happening on the generation side. And this presentation is divided into two, where in the first section I will give you some background about this disruption and the problems that brings with it, and the solutions for addressing this problem. And in the second part, in the last 5 minutes, I can talk a little bit about Brazil and the opportunities that we have. I guess this is not new to anybody. We are in the beginning of a great transition in the generation markets, where wind and solar are becoming more and more the predominant sources for system expansion. So these two graphs here, we are showing the capacity additions year by year, and we can see that from 2010 to nowadays, wind and solar are now the primary sources for capacity additions worldwide. It began with wind, but now solar is the predominant source. This began mainly due to decarbonization targets, but now I can say to you that wind and solar, they are the cheapest sources of energy. So if you look into the lowest cost of megawatt hour, you are probably talking about wind and solar, and it's incredible how these two technologies evolve over the last 10 years. I remember when I joined Wärtsilä in 2009, I took the Brazilian plan for the future, and there was 0 solar and 0 wind farms to be installed by 2020. And today we have more than 15 gigawatts of wind and solar. It's incredible. This is the map that I like to show in every presentation. Shows the source that was most installed into the countries in 2009. It's all becoming blue and yellow. Year by year, if year after year, we are seeing less gray and more blue and yellow. And this means a lot of hydro, a lot of solar, and a lot of wind being installed in the countries. If you look this map from 10 years ago, probably majority of the countries was coal, gray, and now we are at this stage. In Brazil, it's no different. This graph I took from the system operation. It shows the northeast side of Brazil, and we can clearly see how wind, which is the green source here, is gaining importance over time since 2013, and it's replacing the role of hydro in the Brazilian matrix. I will talk about this a bit further, and how this can be integrated into the Brazilian system. So what is the problem that this brings? So we have 2 new pretty girls entering into the energy markets. They are green, they are very cheap, so they must be used. It makes economic sense for them to be used when available, but they have some collateral effects. They vary, they are pretty volatile. So within minutes, you can have drops in generation or ramps in generation. Solar is a little bit less volatile, but it's concentrated during a few hours in the day. So you still need to find solutions for your night generation. And maybe one of the most important features that must be addressed, and it's one of the challenges, is that both of these sources, they are kind of unpredictable. So we never know for sure with some time in advance when wind is going to be blowing, and sun is of course a little bit better, but we also, it's very challenging to know when a cloud is going by the sun and it's going to interfere into the solar generation. So this brings a new challenge for power systems, and the more wind and solar that you install in power systems, this effect will gain importance, and this problem will become a pretty good headache to be solved by system planners and system operators. So how to address large amounts of volatile generation into the power grids, it's the challenge of the system planners nowadays. So what is the solution? Together with the expansion of wind and solar, you need also to increase the capability of your grid to balance wind and solar. So I will define here what I will call flexibility from now on. Flexibility is the ability of a power system to handle quick variations in demand and in generation. So if I have a lot of wind and solar, I do have to install in my grid flexible assets that I can control. Meaning, when I have scarcity of renewable resource, I can quick start up some technology that can handle, or I can quick transfer energy from one place to another in order to cover this scarcity. So the challenge of power systems with high penetration of renewables is to increase system flexibility, or to assess the need to increase system flexibility in order to integrate friendly these new 2 sources. These are the type of technologies that can increase system flexibility. I will focus on the 3 in the middle because they are the most important for the Brazilian case. For instance, if you increase transmission capabilities within your system, you can transfer energy from one place to another, and you have that capacity that helps you integrate more renewables. energy storage, and not only battery storage, for example, hydro storage is a great flexible asset, because you can basically store wind and in forms of megawatt hours or in form of water into the dams to be used when the system needs. And also fast and dynamic power generation can be installed in order to be used only during times when the system faces a scarcity of renewable generation. I will focus in these three because they are the most important in Brazil when I show the Brazilian case. Let's go to Brazil. So this is the system today. I think this is not new to anybody that Brazil today, hydro is the alpha male of the system still, right? More than 70% of the electricity consumed in the country comes from hydro, and the future we will not have more hydro potential to be utilized, because now the hydro potential for Brazil are in the Amazon jungle, where it's very hard to permit new dams or new hydro resources, because Amazon jungle is a very flat area. If you build a hydro there, you will flood huge area of forest. So this is not allowed anymore, and we will see, as in the green line in the graph, a steady growth in renewable generation in the country. And this renewable generation is going to be basically wind and solar. Together with renewable generation, we can see in the graph as well that the energy authorities in Brazil also are planning an increase in this, what they call alternativa ponta, which is peaking plants to deal with intermittency. How is Brazil going to increase system flexibility with these huge amounts of wind and solar that are being built over the next few years? So one of the most important solutions is the increase in transmission capacity. So this is the Brazilian system nowadays, pretty sophisticated and large transmission system, but by 2026 that's how it's going to look like, because we need to incorporate a lot of wind and solar that are going to be built in the northeast region of Brazil. Also, another potential solution is 13 gigawatts of flexible power plants to be installed over the next few years. And one should think, well, I mean, you mentioned that hydro storage is a big flexible asset. So why can't Brazil use the hydro storage nowadays and integrate a lot of renewables with green energy? And that's possible. But the problem is the hydro storage is uncertain, and it's dependent on rain, and the flexibility that comes from the hydro plants, it's uncertain and it's dependent on rain. So you still need to install flexible generation to be used when times of you don't have renewable resources to run your grid. So we ran a simulation of the Brazilian grid, and these graphs, they show the Brazilian demand on October 2027. And this is just to highlight how the flexible generation works and why this is such a smart solution. They cost very little for you to maintain them online, and you use them only when times that you need. It's your system insurance, let's say. So during a wet year, we can see that the flexible generation is only the orange part. So during a wet year, you use very minimum flexible generation from natural gas just to cover very small peaks during the worst month of the year. In an average year, it runs roughly 10% of the time, so it's still very low just to maintain system reliability, but it becomes very important in dry years when we don't have water from the rain, and the limit and the flexibility from the hydro plants, they become very limited. So that's when flexible generation enters and maintains the reliability of the grid. So that's why it's so important, and it's better than energy storage, because storage is limited, right? So you can run for some hours, and when you are empty, you don't have more energy to install. So that's why for the hydro system in Brazil, flexible generation is so important, and that's why there is 13 gigawatts of potential opportunities to be explored by Wärtsilä here in the country. This is just to sum up. I just showed to you how wind and solar are becoming the new king and the new queen of power system. How you need to increase system flexibility. So this means also that old coal, steam, combined cycle natural gas, even nuclear will become less and less important into energy matrix, and Brazil will experience huge growth on renewable resources, wind and solar. If the country returns to normal economic growth, this means 4 to 5 gigawatts of new capacity being added. And in order to keep the system reliability, we need to increase transmission lines, so thousands of kilometers of transmission lines and gigawatts of flexible generation. Bruno, I think I missed 2 minutes my time, but that's what I had for today.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. A very interesting topic, and we all have in mind that energy transition is something that is quite in high level in the Brazilian agenda, and also on the, of course, also on the Nordics agenda that have been establishing quite ambitious goals for a long time already. It seems that we have a few questions from the audience. So if Luisa would like to, Gabriel, maybe you can, I don't know if you still have to share your screen, but I think Luisa may have some questions to you as well.
Yes, thank you, Bruno. So good morning, everyone. I have a question. At the present time in Brazil, are the regulations and policies, are they adequate to adapt quickly enough for the sustainable and technological challenge? I mean, is Brazil prepared for these changes in terms of regulations and policies?
I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, but I will answer like a lawyer. It depends on your point of view, Luisa. We are in the middle of a transformation in the Brazilian power sector, so there is a lot of new regulations in Congress. For example, we need to rediscuss the role of hydro plants in the country, because hydro, they play an important role as a flexible asset, and this flexibility is not remunerated. We have a new natural gas law in the Congress to be approved. I would say that for this beginning of the integration, yes, we are prepared. We can still use the existing tools that are available, but as more wind and solar are integrated, the problems will arise, and we will need to move forward with the reforms that are in Congress. For example, Brazil has no regulation for energy storage, and we need to have one if we want to integrate more renewables into the grid. So the answer is, I think we are ready now for this beginning, but we need to rush for if we want to integrate more renewables.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second question is about the hybrid vessels. So recently, Wärtsilä Brazil reported their first project of a hybrid vessel in Latin America, increasing energy efficiency and reducing carbon emissions. So how do you see the spread of this technology and its acceptance from the Brazilian market? Is it possible to expand it in different modalities in the waterway sector in Brazil?
Yes, definitely. Hybridization, like in Portuguese English, is going to be one of the most important solutions in order for the customers to be able to meet the emission requirement for the future. So I mean, I believe it's already feasible today. So we are, again, still in the beginning. You know, it's a new solution. Customers have this inertia to accept new solutions, but this CDO deal was a great breakthrough from the marine team, and I strongly believe that over time we will have more and more of these deals, because that's the path for a sustainable marine environment. So yes.
Thank you very much.
Great. It seems that we also have a question from the audience. So Eugenio from Rumble, Eugenio Singer from Rumble would like to make a question. I think Ana will...
Sim. Muito bom dia a todos. Parabéns aí pela iniciativa.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Congratulations on the initiative and the presentation. Well, you mentioned a lot the renewable sources in Brazil. I would like to know if Wärtsilä has plans to enter in the biomass area, because today biomass in Brazil is becoming a reality. There is a plan to change all the energy supply chain and everything developed by Raízen along with the Sumitomo, and the pilot project already implanted with the export of more than 60,000 tons of PET in an experimental way, without considering the lyophilization of sugarcane. The project is ready, but the plan is to bring to Brazil supercritical boilers and expand the sector and take more space of the natural gas. And I would also like to know what you think about the wind offshore in Brazil, if it is the aeolic pre-salt, or if there is a lot of lobby for offshore air energy, and the reality of will take longer. You asked the question in Portuguese, I will answer in Portuguese. I'll start by the last one because it's simpler. The wind offshore is still in the beginning in Brazil. If we consider the experience of other countries, first we have a lot of wind onshore, and after exhausting the potential of wind onshore, you go to wind offshore. That there are advantages and disadvantages. We are still in the beginning of this pathway. We have a lot of potential that of course will be used, but I believe it will take some time because we still have a lot of air potential to be used in Brazil onshore. And the cost of installation of wind onshore in Brazil has decreased a lot. So we have a lot of economic challenges of offshore to be as competitive as onshore. But we are talking about when it's going to happen. But at some point in the future, it will happen. And regarding biomass, the presentation was focused on the transition, the beginning of the transition, and I talked a lot about natural gas. And Wärtsilä understands natural gas as the transition fuel. Probably in some decades, it will also be substituted by some renewable fuel, may it be synthetic or biomethane or something like that. So yes, Wärtsilä has plans to explore that. We have the engine in the factory that runs 25% with hydrogen and 20% of natural gas. And we have a plan to have engines 100% running on renewable sources. We have another business line that is to explore biomethane and biogas, but it's always with this expectation of using fuels in the engines that we have in our portfolio. So answering your question about biomass, we don't have plans to provide that for boilers in the traditional biomass. No, the idea is to use as the fuel for the engines. I don't know if I answered you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel, for clarifying also the questions. Very good, a very good presentation. And as we said, it's high position in our agendas, both for the Nordics and for Brazil, the energy transition. Now, after listening from two very interesting Nordic cases about urban planning and energy, sustainable energy. We also would like to listen from the Brazilian side about the Brazilian ecosystem of cleantechs. So we are very pleased to have here with us Mr. Renato Paquet, who is the director of the Cleantech Committee of the AB Startups. So please, Renato, we are looking forward to hear from you about also the Brazilian cleantech scenario.
Olá, pessoal. Bom dia a todos. Bom dia, Bruno.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Bruno. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to bring the Brazilian experience and a little bit of the Brazilian scenario that is being developed. It's still recent, but quite well qualified and has been showing more and more maturity in terms of developers and the understandings that are being built. Now, talking a little bit about the definition of cleantechs to our audience. Cleantechs are technological-based companies with a sustainability, whatever it is, the area of business in the community and the core business. So all the deliveries that the startup does is quite related to the positive impact, to the positive externality of their operations. For many decades, the only concern of the company, like any cleantech, was to have their goods and products and services to be sold, but the demands of the consumers for being fast and practical and comfortable made more products and more startups to arise on the market to comply with all this demand. And what we do is to respond to what the clients demand. And in Brazil, it was not different. We saw the number of startups and clean techs quadrupled in the last years. So we see a big growth regarding what we saw some years ago, despite many things were already happening. We've seen that for some points, and in general, the market looked a little bit more on that, and the consumers were demanding more and more for solutions that would solve part of the problem. And we need to remember that cleantechs, when we are talking about startups, that startups come to solve problems that are on the market as a big challenge to be solved. And regarding sustainability, Brazil offers many opportunities for the entrepreneurs, given the low quality of infrastructure that we have to deal with the main basis that we have of entrepreneurs working, that is to deal with a solid waste, as you all know, and it's all published, and we discussed that more than half of the Brazilian solid waste goes to big dams. And we deal with that with no treatment at all when this solid waste pollutes our rivers, and we have a lot of water that in theory is abundant, but it's scarce in terms of use, and it poses the problem of recycling, because Brazil only recycles 3% of everything, all the waste on the market. And according to the Brazilian Association of Machinery, we have a very interesting data of the installed capacity in Brazil and efficiency, and it's about 120 billion reais that we bury a year with a solid waste that could be recycled, and it's not. So we have on the market 120 billion that is not being used, and only 3% of the potential is used. And on the other hand, we have all the sanitation infrastructure in Brazil, and also half of the Brazilian households don't have treated water, and a big part of it doesn't have adequate sanitation. and a huge amount of these waters receiving this treated water in their homes. For every liter that we have to distribute, we lose 1/3 during the pathway, so until it is consumed by the person demanding that. So to work with losses or solid waste, we have a lot of opportunities here to work with. And the majority of the fintechs in Brazil and cleantechs in Brazil work on the market of renewable sources. Today, we have more than half of the cleantech startups in Brazil focusing on energy, made for energy efficiency to avoid losses, to avoid undesired consumption, and to generate energy and for more efficient transistors and softwares with solar or wind plants using the concepts of distributed generation and production of energy. And we use today blockchain to create kilowatts and sell directly to the final consumer. So with all safety and transparency of actions, this market is being revolutionizing more and more and showing great potential in Brazil. In general, we have production impacts and the carbon emission and residues and waste. And this is a point of discussion for industry when taking decisions on the investments in the whole chain here in Brazil. And we see that it calls our attention a lot now because we work in the sector, and we've seen that for many years. But today we are satisfied to see that we see the ESG acronym. If you don't know, this is basically the idea of environment and social activities and corporations, and this is calling a lot of attention. This is the new sustainability term, and this is the differential for the investors in the quotation of the company, because it is, if you are based on ESG scores, you want more resilient and solid bets on the crisis with less cost of capital. Once the concept of ESG is so discussed today, and the principle of investors is that you are ignoring something that is so discussed and so material, so probably there is something that you are not paying attention to, and it raises the risk of investments in that company. So at the same time that we demand solutions of the companies, we grow with the number of innovative solutions from fintechs to comply with the demands of the industry. So I think that there is no surprise to anyone that we have today 70% of the Brazilian companies and cleantechs working in the B2B sector. I mean, offering solutions to companies, to the industry to solve their problems. I generally say that big corporations are big companies with a continuous flow and the product very clear, and that startups and cleantechs are working based on them with the solutions to be solved. So I say that startups are like the aircrafts in the aircraft carrier of the company, so that they don't have to change all the course at once. We know that most of them are following this pathway of more climate resilience, avoiding waste of resources, and this all means efficiency. Now, the data of the entrepreneurs in fintechs and cleantechs in Brazil, this is very interesting to focus this discussion based on that, taking this modern sector to have this discussion. And this shouldn't be a modern discussion, this should be mandatory, but the Brazilian entrepreneurs in cleantechs, they are not different from the reality of entrepreneurs in general in Brazil. 93% of them are men. They are identified with the male gender, and the diversity is something that has to be worked a lot in this sense. in this entrepreneur actions for a more diverse sector that is always more creative and a sector that brings more solution in a more diverse way to those who demand it. Another interesting data of the clean tech entrepreneurs in Brazil is that in the other sectors like fintechs and xtechs and other sectors of startups having 20, 25 years as the average of entrepreneurs, in the clean techs, they are more seniors. 70% of them are about 31 and 40 years old. They are people that have more than 10 years of experience in big industries and at some point decide to be entrepreneurs. So this is mature on the market with the resilience rate given the experience that is very interesting. So it brings to us very interesting data regarding time and duration and scale of the startups today in Brazil. 52% of them are engineers as a background and 57% with a post-graduation. And the vast majority with a business and administration training. So we have a lot of technicians with post-graduation and management to work on the market. So they join the technical and the management knowledge to be entrepreneur in clean techs. So I think this is what we have today. We are following a reality of mature entrepreneurs with mature solution to comply with the demands of companies that are growing in Brazil, taking us to solutions that, as we hope, will bring to a more mature country and mainly a more resilient country in terms of climate. And discussing the profile of the clean techs in Brazil, as I said, 40% work in the sector of clean sector. 71% don't have any patent registered. I'm in contact with them, and in the Brazilian Association we have more than 13,000 startups in our bases, and less patents are a differential. So 71% of them don't have registered patents. The concept of open source and innovation and open technology is inherent of the fintech, clean tech entrepreneurs. So they believe that the big differential is to add value in the execution and not in the idea that you had or the registering a patent. And 73% are in the extraction phase. I mean, they faced the valley of death of the startups. That would be the first 2 years of the startup when you validate your business model to see if you deliver model to the value to the business. And 73% of them are over that. So we have a mature sector with more companies working than in other sectors, and half has received some capital. And in terms of cost of opportunity, when you inject money and capital to a place that will bring back investments, half of them received capital, and it also validates the startups because they are growing strongly and with muscles and maturity to reach their scale stages and possible IPO or selling to other business groups. So I think that the fact of us having 36% of the startups and in development and 13 in scale, I mean, they have scaled up, and 49% of them makes 49% to be developed and advanced in terms of work on the market. And curiously, this number, 49%, is exactly the same as the number of startups receiving apport. So there is no direct correlation, but it shows us that the cost and capital in clean tech and startups may take them to a new stage of maturity, and a lot because most of them depend on the development of technology and even development of hardware. Hardware capital is in fact important for them to reach this advanced business stage. And now bringing a little bit of my final words, a little bit of the value chain of the startups. 56% are used by the final consumer. I mean, they are selling products to companies and the companies sell to the final consumer. So this is the model that we call B2B2C. So half sell to the final consumer by creating a solution and using capillarity and maturity and distribution of big companies to distribute this company to them. Half of them also manufacture the product. So as I said, it's very important for us to keep in mind the financing lines and financial support and risky capital for these industries and startups manufacturing products to hire from the industry and providing the services, and 39% of them work with reuse and recycling, and 39 with energy, 25% in mounting and helping with the efficiency of mounting and operations of companies that are saving on resources and energy, and 18% working with less waste. So working in censoring what is distributed as energy and what is distributed as water and what is distributed as income, and giving attention to what was wasted in the past. We have 13% working directly in raw material extraction and taking more efficiency and techniques to the sites, and with a geomorphological mapping for the exploration of areas and new technologies that are entering the market for the extraction of raw material. So this was my overview on what is the clean tech. I think this is a good point for Q&A and clear some doubts of our participants. Wonderful, Renato. It's very nice to hear a little bit about the Brazilian scenario and where the Brazilian companies are working in the clean techs and startups. We have some questions here in the chat. The first one from Francisco is regarding energy storage. Have you seen, have you been working with the sector or been seeing startups in the association for energy storage? And how do you see the sector today or the current scenario in Brazil? Well, we've seen some startups working with energy storage, working with innovation in energy has a high cost of innovation, and raw materials are very expensive in this area. So what we see is more companies working on what will come in terms of energy with less loss and what will leave to the storage bases with more efficiency. But we see some startups working in energy storage, despite most of them being working in the distribution sector, than in fact developing the hard tech, the hardware for storage of this energy. Okay, now a question from Henrique França. What is your perspective for the growth of awareness regarding climate and the market for carbon neutralization in the next years in Brazil? And what is the perspective of growth of these emissions? Well, Henrique, great question. I believe that We believe in exponential awareness of everyone, and especially during this pandemic and the confined times, it brought a lot of awareness of all the waste we generate in our homes, because we spent most of the day outside home, so we weren't aware of that. But during this period, we are home day and night, and we see all the waste generated, and you see the amount it represents. So there was a big search for startups to neutralize the impact of packages by the companies that work with consumers, and naturally to the process of neutralization of carbon, as it is one of the most commented subjects in the sector over the last 10 years. And for climate, C10, that is the Brazilian Committee for the Sustainable Development, with its arm here in Brazil, has negotiations that are advanced with the Ministry of Science and Technology and with the Ministry of Environment, so that we have a compulsory market for the neutralization of CO2 in Brazil. And most likely, this is a discussion that will happen and be regulated over the next 2 years. Another excellent perspective is that we have in the sanitation landmark, with data of last August in the regulation of all the sector, the parliamentary front in sanitation bringing climate and CO2 and the equivalent of neutralization of emission as some material to be dealt in the basis of sanitation in Brazil. What is very interesting, if we can learn something from the delay that Brazil has regarding infrastructure for sanitation and carbon production, is that due to us being quite late in the installations and what we do in the chain, we won't have to follow standards like having investments and then improvements and another improvement. What we do is taking benchmarks that are very well established on the market, we adapt to the Brazilian reality, and we apply here to scale in our region and to tropicalize it, as we say. That is, we'll sum up with great experiences from abroad, but to regulate that in Brazil and to apply it to the Brazilian reality and comply with the demands of the consumers, the industry, and mainly the planet regarding neutralization of CO2. So the perspective is quite positive to have something regulated over the next 2 years. I believe till the end of next year, we'll be clear on the roadmap of regulation of this sector. Perfect. We are running out of time, but the last question. Renato, you mentioned many sectors like distribution, energy efficiency, value of waste, and valorization of sanitation, and these are priorities, and many of the startups, Nordic startups, are also focused on. This is an area of the world where there is a lot of creation of startups. How do you see the possibility of cooperation among startups of other countries? And these matchmaking systems, as you said, of tropicalization of some technologies and adaptation to our local market, are there programs of startups in the association for possible matchmaking between startups of different countries? And if there isn't, is it a possibility? Well, Bruno, wonderful question. I believe that there is the big possibility. Unfortunately, we still don't have anything in terms of cooperation well structured of startups from abroad and Brazilian ones. I think this is to sum up the best possibles, because technologies in general may be applied to the sector. As they are global companies working in sanitation, the problems and adaptations are quite similar to the sector. So we have the huge possibility of applying technologies of other countries here. On the other hand, we have a country like Brazil with a biodiversity in terms of making business and working in the territory and understanding the mind of the entrepreneur and the government that is one of the big buyers of sanitation. So we may have adaptations and consolidations of the understanding of the Brazilian entrepreneur on the market and how to make business, and the ones from abroad with well-developed technology. So some in the technology of having business internationally with a well-developed technology is a huge potential. I open the availability of the agenda for us to make that happen. Wonderful, perfect. So the next step for us to discuss this possibility. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was wonderful. I hope people like the explanations and answering the questions. Thank you.
Now, I would like to say sorry again for this small delay that we had in our agenda, but now we are going to have the case 3 from Nordic countries, smart and sustainable transportation. For this panel, I would like to invite my colleague from the Swedish Embassy, Leandro Rocha, who will moderate this panel and the presentations of the 3 companies. Leandro?
Thank you, Bruno. Okay, just a second. Okay. Well, my name is Leandro Rocha from the Swedish Embassy, and I will be presenting case 3 on smart and sustainable transportation. This case will be divided into 3 presentations, being the first one on sustainable mobility with Mr. Thiago Matos, Public Affairs from Scania. The second presentation on autonomous transportation with Mr. Geir Erik Valle Nielsen, Managing Director from Kongsberg Maritime. And the third one on smart transportation with Mr. Knut Frederik Ramstad, CEO from Mixmove. So for us to start the first presentation on sustainable mobility, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Thiago Matos from Scania. Thiago, please.
Ok, Leandro, obrigado. Bom dia a todos. Eu vou compartilhar minha tela aqui.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'll share my screen with the presentation.
Estão vendo?
Perfeito, perfeito.
Can you see it? Okay, perfect, Thiago. So I'm Thiago Matos. I'm an engineer, and currently I work with public policies on sustainability in Scania. And first, I would like to thank for the invitation.
Gostaria de agradecer o convite, né? A Scania tem participado de vários fóruns relacionados.
I would like to thank for the invitation. Scania has been part of many forums on sustainability in the world, and this is such an important subject to our company that is the mission of our company today, that is to lead the change for a more sustainable transportation. So this is our reason as a company today. Today, being sustainable is not an option anymore. It's a need. We understand that the world today, with a constant change, and in fact, the only constant that we have that we can say we are sure is the change, because things will change, and being sustainable is a need. We understand that. We understand our clients also have this demand for being more sustainable, so more sustainable operations in general. And sustainability has to make sense. So from the economical and financial point of view, and environmental and social as well. So here we have, I mentioned 3, but we also have the financial. All these points must make sense. So we cannot talk from the environmental point of view without having the economical and the social solved. So without one of these 3 pillars being complied, including the financial one, sustainability ends up not making sense. In Scania, we have 3 pillars that are the basis for sustainability in transportation. So here, I'll illustrate briefly some of them, starting with an energy efficiency. Then we go to smart and safe transportation and renewables sources and electrification. So when we talk about the first pillar, in Scania, we say that the best liter of fuel is the one that will be burned. So we talk a lot about having energy efficiency of the product optimized with power trends that are more efficient, with more aerodynamics in the vehicles, a whole system to reduce consumption of the vehicle, and then have energy efficiency increased. The second point is regarding the alternatives, the alternative and renewable fuels that we have today in Scania that are quite important for us to reduce emissions, future emissions. And today we have probably the biggest offer on technology to diesel on the market. So we have biogas, HVO, natural gas, FAME biodiesel, ethanol, and the hybrids like HVO, and also electric vehicles, electric buses, and electric trucks. And the third pillar that is also important for us to reach sustainability in general is the autonomous technologies and also the connected vehicles, giving us information so that we can improve even more the use of this information and give it back to the clients as a way of optimizing the service. Scania has the service that is the Backways study showing how to reach 2050 with heavy transportation that is fossil-free. And in this study, we show that only with the optimization of the transportation systems with a better cargo management, it's possible to reduce 20% the consumption and the emissions of CO2 in the transportation. And we don't have one single solution to solve all problems, let's say. So Scania today invests in alternative technologies, understanding that each one has their niche, their use, and depending on the reach, the region, one technology will be more adequate than the other. So there is no single technology that is better than the other, and only one of them will solve all problems. But we'll have a set of alternative technologies that will live together in the same space so that we'll have this possibility of reducing the emissions as we have as our goals. And currently in Brazil, Scania has in São Bernardo do Campo some investments programs so that we can support and have all these technologies available in Brazil. So from 2016 to 2020, we had 1.6 billion invested in São Bernardo, and we have a second step that is from 2021 to 2024 with 1.4 billion more invested in the plant, so that we have this global Scania platform also here in Brazil. In this picture, you see the first truck that is nationally produced, that is a gas. So this is the first one, this one in the picture. And I would like to focus a little bit on the gas and talk a little bit about it, the natural gas and biomethane, because we see a huge potential for our country in the use of natural gas and biomethane in the heavy transportation, may it be for cargo or for passengers. Now, talking about biomethane, the Brazilian potential, as it was mentioned here, is a huge potential. Unfortunately, we don't make use of it totally. But Brazil is facing a moment of having a ramp up of this use. So agro, business, sanitation, and dams are devalorized by the matter that they are. But Brazil has a huge potential of using this waste of agro sanitation and landfill for transportation. And the numbers of biogas show that the sectors combined would be enough to work with 75% of the diesel consumption and about 40% of the energy demand of the country. This is an important number, and of course, this transition is not from night to day, and even if it's not, even if all the diesel is not substituted and all the energy is not substituted, we see that there is a great potential for a better use of this matter that we have, as it was mentioned, that we are wasting. So the country has a huge potential today that can be better used. And Scania truly believes that this will be a brief reality. And now talking about this concept of waste to fuel, the biomethane is a wonderful chain. So what is waste? What is garbage, let's say, that we end up throwing away, in fact, is money that we are wasting, because we have technologies today that are quite well developed, and I'll show some cases here from the world where this waste has a better destination, like organic waste and from agriculture and from animals. They are become an energy asset instead of simply liability. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you have 2 minutes to finish your presentation, okay? Now, talking about emissions, we have a graph showing how the gas is inserted in terms of emissions, and these are quite low emissions compared to other technologies. Another graph that I have here to present is of all the emissions that vehicles Euro 5 and 6 have and how gas is inserted, and we can see that they are quite low emissions. And some good examples that Scania today has operations worldwide with a vehicle using natural biogas and biomethane, and Stockholm today has about 2,300 vehicles without fossil fuels. Kamar in Sweden as well is completely non-fossil with residues used for the production of biomethane and the use of the vehicles. And we have examples in India as well, in the United Kingdom. And on the left, an interesting picture because this bus with the people sitting on the toilet, calling attention of society, so how waste and residues are used to put fuel in this bus, because this uses biogas. And another example of Madrid and also Colombia, that is the greatest case of Scania selling a product with alternative technology with more than 700 buses with natural gas in Colombia and in Brazil. We are also starting this revolution. We currently have about 50 trucks sold in Brazil. And here are some numbers of Latin America. And this is something that has been more advanced over the last 2 years, that the country and the clients have becoming more aware about the environment and about the sustainability that gas and biomethane have brought to the operations. So here I would show a video, Leandro, but I guess we won't have time. It's a 2-minute video. So, Thiago, okay, 2 minutes we can do. Please play your video.
Waste is a growing global problem. A mere 25% of all garbage worldwide is recycled, composted, or digested. 1/3 of all food produced goes to waste, including almost half of all the fruit and vegetables grown. Basically, all organic waste ends up in landfills. There, it decomposes and creates methane and carbon dioxide, which are released into the atmosphere with dire consequences. Landfills leaking toxics and chemicals that poisons our soils and freshwater supplies for no good reason. Yet, at the same time as the garbage heaps are piling up, in some places, a small revolution is taking place. In Sweden, 99
Thiago, parece que teve problema com seu vídeo.
Waste is recycled. Instead of being a problem, waste has become a resource, as food scraps and other organic waste are used to produce biogas, bioethanol, and biodiesel. Locally produced fuel leads to better environmental solutions and clean, low-carbon buses and trucks on a global scale. This means not only attractive transport, but also fewer landfills, lower carbon dioxide emissions, and less use of fossil fuels, improving environment and health, creating local jobs, and reducing climate change. Scania and our partners offer complete waste-to-fuel solutions with proven technology addressing your city's waste, energy, and emissions challenges. You can't run from the waste problem, but you can drive away from it in a Scania bus.
Bom, pessoal, agradeço a atenção de todos.
So thank you for your attention. I'm here to answer your questions.
On behalf of Scania, talking about sustainable mobility. Let's move to the second presentation. This presentation will be done by Mr. Geir Erik Valen Nielsen, Managing Director from Kongsberg Maritime, who will talk about autonomous transportation. Mr. Nielsen, please.
Thank you, Leandro. I will just bring up my presentation so you can also see it.
Yep.
So let's see here if I go screen share. Can you see it, Leandro?
Yes, your presentation is on.
Perfect. As Gabriel said earlier today, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Geir Erik. I am the Managing Director for Kongsberg Maritime here in Brazil. And I have the honor today to speak to you about autonomy or smart transportation. As Thiago talked about autonomy on the roadside when it comes to trucks, I will talk more about autonomy on the waterways. This is quite a wide area and you can use a lot of time to talk about it, but I'll try to use my 10 minutes to the best and give you just a quick short update on the latest development on solutions, our products, and our functionalities, and also updates on some ongoing projects that we in Kongsberg participate in. So if you go to the next page, let's see. Did it change slide? It's working? Yeah. So when developing anything, we need to understand the boundaries and clearly define the system of interest. So when it comes to autonomous operation on waterways that we are looking into, we have grouped development into the 3 pillars of autonomous operation. You first have the vessel capabilities, and not just the navigational autonomy, but you also have the situation awareness. You have collision avoidance system. You have remote and autonomous navigation. You have dockings, and you also have intelligent machinery systems. Then you have the second pillar, that is the bidirectional secure connectivity. And the third pillar, as we said, is the remote operation center, where you do the vessel and fleet monitoring. You have a remote control, you have condition monitoring and smart maintenance strategies. You have the technology for interacting with shore-based service provider, port, coastal authorities. So when we are talking about autonomous operation, the system of interest include all these 3 pillars. This is quite useful to remember, because even though the focus when you talk about autonomous is so often the vessel, autonomous shipping includes much more. It is a lot more that is behind this to get it to work. So I will first bring up one of the first pillars when I talk about the vessel capabilities. A year ago, we were competing with Rolls-Royce Commercial Marine on highly automated functionality for maneuvering and positioning. Rolls-Royce had the head start on automatic crossing, while Kongsberg were in the lead on the automatic berthing. Luckily for us, we have been able to combine our efforts and have been granted approval by the Norwegian Maritime Authority for using in commercial service auto berthing and auto crossing functionality on a 143-meter road ferry. It belongs to Bastefosen, which is the operator in Norway. The ferry goes between two cities on each side of the busy Oslofjord. It's a VTS area in Norway. So let's see here if I can start a movie for you. So, do you hear the sound?
We see the image, but it's muted for now.
Let's see if I can get the sound up also. Just give me 1 minute.
Sure.
How to do that? Then I just need to stop it. And I don't need the sound, but I can talk a little bit there. The crossing takes around 30 minutes. If the vessel operates at average speed of 12.5 knots, the captain selects the preferred route according to wind and weather. He pushes and activates, and the system does the rest, from unberthing, crossing automatically, and berths safely on the other side. When talking with Bastefosen, the chief operation officer told us that in April, May this year, the automatic system had been used in 89% of the voyages. And also we see the fuel consumption is steadily decreasing as the algorithms are trained from the experience. And from a company like Bastefosen, where the safety and the the consistency according to the schedule to service is the 2 main important focus. This is something that helped them to be at quay on time every time. Although this is not in the range of unmanned autonomy, these capabilities, they are essential building blocks to enable autonomous operation. For the next immediate steps, we are also adding on optical sensors. We are adding algorithms for object detection, classification, as well as integrating advisory avoidance. So if we go quickly to the next slide, I will talk about another project that we also have ongoing. Yara Birkeland, this was a project that came out in the media in 2017. It's the world's first fully autonomous zero-emission commercial shipping application. this short sea application it was driven by Yara, an agriculture company. They wanted to reduce the environmental impact of transportation of fertilizer products, so they decided to switch transportation of goods from road transportation to sea transportation. And to make it then carbon friendly, it was also then a zero emission vessel. That's how the project started, and part of this autonomy in this project, you also have this autonomous aspect of loading and offloading. So if you just go to the next slide, I will show you a little bit of what this is all about. This video is also without sound, but that's I don't think that's any problem. Let's see if we can get it up here. This is just a video telling a little bit of the backstory and how they see the Yara Birkeland will operate.
Mr. Nilsson, just so you know, your video is muted.
Yes, I know.
Eric, if you can, you need to reshare your screen and apply the share computer sound.
Okay, then I will do it again. Just give me 1 second and we do it. Go share screen. Share computer sound. Then you can see it again. Start in. So integration of technology components when it comes to this big project is critical. I will just show a little bit of what we actually are delivering to such a project. We have advanced sensing, we have CAD 360 degrees vision camera system, you have the CCTV, internal, external surveillance. Then you go over to the advanced maneuvering functionalities, you have a container-sized bridge and autonomy. The vessel will be delivered with a bridge. The system needs to be tested first, but when everything being tested, the bridge will be lifted off. That's why it's a container size, just a module that can be taken on and off. We have maritime broadband communication to the remote control center that is onshore. You have cable power switchboards, you have battery packages for zero emission, you have the K-chip automation system, and you have condition monitoring on rotating equipment down back at the propeller side. You have then the cognified digital platform that Kongsberg delivered that this will communicate with back to the remote control center. And we also have the K-truss propulsion center and the automated mooring system. With that being said, this is quite nice animations. So what is the actual status of the vessel today? This is the vessel today leaving the shipyard for sea trials. Yara Birkeland, let's start with a fun fact. It was an ambitious timeline for this project. It was announced in May 2017. It started testing in 2019, and the contract for building it was signed in 2018. This vessel will be delivered to the owner this week. So it's a full-size vessel that is finished tested. Yara as a company wants to put this in operation end of 2021. The vessel itself is tested based on class requirements. However, the design and equipment is chosen and developed with in mind that the vessel shall operate unmanned. It means that all the products and solution that has been delivered to this project is prepared for unmanned operation with redundancy. It has automation for normal function. You have auto berthing, auto docking, navigational lights. You have remote control, etc. And then you have the last piece of this project, which will replace the cruise physical interaction. This is something that now will be tested going forward. That's why you see the bridge is still on this vessel, because now this part will start the testing. And this will be tested now after it has been delivered. Another cool aspect of this vessel is that it's full electric, this including the propulsion with a battery capacity of approximately 1,000 Teslas. That's the electric car. So if you have the same battery capacity as you have on 1,000 Teslas, that's the same battery capacity you have inside this vessel. I think I'm a little bit over time, but I just want to mention quickly another really interesting project that Kongsberg is participating in. It's AutoShip. It's a Horizon 2020 funded project under the Smart Green Integrated Transportation Program. It's funded by the EU. Kongsberg is one of the companies that is participating. The autonomous ship is under the arena of mobility growth. It started in June 2019, and it will run for 4 years. And it has both Norwegian and European partners. In this project, we will develop, equip, and run full-scale operation demonstrations of autonomous functionality for 2 types of vessel. The first demonstrator is a short sea feed carrier, and the second one is a pallet shuttle barge. And the one will operate in the inland waterways on the coast of Norway, and the other one in the inland waterways in Flanders in Belgium. And they will both be delivered to what you call technology readiness level 7, which means system prototype demonstration in realistic operational environments. This project has already started to deliver documents and other deliverables. So if people are interested in autonomy and AutoShip, it is possible to go into the website of this project and read more about what has been delivered so far. My last slide is also something I think is really important about autonomy. The autonomy is also helping us to achieve the UN sustainability goals. Autonomy in itself has effect on these 5 pillars. Both the decent work and economic growth. You have the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. You have sustainable cities and communities. You have climate action and also life below water. And with this, I would like to say thank you so much, Leandro. The site for the AutoShip project you can find here on this side. So if there is any question, anything, please let me know.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Niels. We should have a 10-minute time slot for Q&As after the third presentation. So for now, I thank you for your
second presentation. Let's move on with the program. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Knud Frederik Ramstad, CEO from MixMove, to talk about smart transportation. Mr. Ramstad, the floor is yours.
I'm unmuted and the camera is on. Okay, start my video. Probably you can see me, and then I will start sharing my screen with you. I'll also enable the shared computer voice.
Yes, you're on.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think it's here. Just let's see here. Share. Let's see.
Yes, perfect. Knud, you're muted.
There we are.
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you so much for letting me have this presentation and meet you all. Good evening and good afternoon and good morning for those of you here. It's actually in the evening or late afternoon. I think what we have seen, I'm going to talk about smart transportation, but in our interpretation of smart transportation is actually how we are using the transport modes that we just have been presented. We have been presented for a great solution that Skandia was presenting, and Kongsberg with Yara Birkeland and the container ships and so forth. Everything, it's like beyond smart. It's a really smart transportation, and it's the future, of course. What I will focus on is actually how to utilize it. And we were about the sustainable goals, and what we will present to you now is like those 3 goals that we touch upon within these UN goals. Let's see here why it does not move. So MixMove is a SaaS solution that optimizes freight flows and increase efficiency and reduce emissions through collaboration and data-driven logistics. That's the main thing. So we are a cloud-based solution on top of existing systems which are there. I'm going to challenge you a little bit about the situation we are in, and the situation, and this is figures from Europe, but I know these are pretty familiar in US and in South America and so forth. Road transport accounts for 72% of all goods in Europe. I think it's more in Brazil and onwards. And the challenge for every one of us is that 20% of all the trucks in Europe is running around empty, and the rest is only filled on half on average. This goes for the containers as well. I think the fill rate in a container is 40%. So if you have an autonomous ship and you fill it with your containers, you need to make sure that your containers is filled up and you are utilizing the capacity which is there. To get there, you need to bundle the freight flows in order to improve the utilization of the rate of your trucks or the containers or the airplanes that you are using. If you manage to do that, it could be an improvement between 100 to 300 billions per year. And we are talking Europe only. I know the fill rates in US is 22%, or the 22% of the trucks are running around empty. I think it's about 30% in Brazil. For the environment, this will be amazing number of savings. You are saving 124 megatons of CO2. So this is the challenge that we are facing today. We can have battery-driven ships, battery-driven trucks. We can do everything autonomously, but the challenge is to utilize the capacity that you have in front of you, how to utilize it. So, and why is it like this? It's due to that there's a lack of collaboration within the industry. There's a lack of distrust within this industry, and people are tending to see it as a competitive advantage to keep the information for themselves and try to carve a larger piece of the pie. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of companies out there that is competing on the same customers. The challenge now is that now the 3PLs, the service provider, which can bring you transport, they are starting to put demands in the market, saying that I would like a shipper which is sustainable, treat my drivers right, is within the UN sustainable goals and so forth. The challenge is that there's a huge underutilization of assets, which I touched upon, and this is due to that the linear shipment change, the traditional practices. So everyone is shipping around with pallets, and most of the pallets is half full, and it's very hard to stack a pallet. So you need to actually work on a parcel level to make sure that you're optimizing what you are looking at. You know that you have savings in CO2 emissions, and you know that you can also reduce your operating costs by doing this. The challenge is that you also is very insufficient with the computerization for doing this. So it's a lot of manual work and processes, and that gives you missed opportunities to implement new ideas and exploit the data. And the way we are handling the freight of goods today in the supply chains within the transportation we have gives you very low resilience. And we saw this with the Brexit, the challenge that UK was facing when the border was closed. We saw that also with COVID coming in, having like Teams meeting and Zoom meetings and trying to make sure that your supply chain is up and running has been very, very, very challenging for everyone. And we will see it when we know it's going to distribute vaccines to the whole world's population within a week of the durability of the vaccines. So there's a challenge in times ahead as well. So you need resilience, and you need to look into how to make this smarter. And one thing is the pandemic and the challenges that we see cross-border. But what we also see is that we change our way of handling our goods. The parcel shipping, today the parcel shipping is 100 billion parcels a year. Will grow up to 200 billion by the end of 2025. Probably faster due to the pandemic, because these figures were from last year. What does this mean? Well, it means that we all are changing pattern on how we are expecting the deliveries. How will this affect the cities that we have been talking about today? How will that affect the congestions that we will see in the cities? We will see an overrun of parcels coming in, and we expect that the market demands fast speed, low cost, sustainable deliveries on top of everything. And then when you have a linear value chain, it's very hard to compete in the market and be there. So changes is needed. The market we are putting this in place ourselves. The online sales is growing for a rate of 22% per year. And the largest retail countries is US, UK, China. And in China, the growth is 33%. How do we cope with this? How do we manage to set this up and make sure that we're utilizing the capacity which is there? So the challenge for the cities is that logistics accounts for 11% of the global emissions. Of course, we can go into Scandia and use biofuel and so forth. But with the amount of parcels coming in and the amount of goods coming into the cities, we know that's going to be a traffic mess in the cities due to the volume will increase. And we know that the congestion costs are caused by truck traffic in the cities. So we need smart transportation. We need traffic regulations for deliveries inside the city centers. And this is nothing that software can help you do that, but somebody needs to take a decision about how we would like our environment to be, how we would like to make sure that everyone is getting their parcels or groceries at the right time with the right transport method. We need to think about how to smart distribute our deliverance into the city and the last mile distribution. We saw that when Uber started with parcel delivery, meaning again, I can bring some parcels and bring it into the cities. Those test cities actually had a huge congestions because everyone was then starting to deliver their goods. We need to think about it. We need to plan it, and it needs to be sustainable. Then we can bring in the physical internet, which is our North Star. This is where we are aiming. The physical internet is that parcels will move through hubs, terminals, like emails are doing on servers today. When will the physical internet be there? Maybe 2030. It was 2050 2 years ago. Now it's 2030. We need to collaborate. So we need to start collaboration, and we need the visibility on it. Those are the buzzwords, which is very important to make sure that you have a sustainable supply chain going forward. I'm going to show you a video.
E-commerce and parcel deliveries worldwide will continue to grow every year. In cities, 30% of freight volume creates 70% of the traffic mess, which is extremely inefficient. And fill rates below 40% equals more than twice the number of truck trips needed. The results? More traffic and emissions. So how to solve these issues? We need to consolidate goods from multiple suppliers that are going into the city and utilize the freight capacity. The solution is to have hubs in the outskirts of the cities. Long-haul trucks come in and offload the customer packages. Here, orders from multiple suppliers are consolidated based on the end destination. Then they will be loaded onto greener transportation alternatives, such as electrical vans, cargo bikes, or even drones. The MixMove platform for logistics operations makes this possible. We provide all the digital capabilities necessary to run an efficient, transparent, and sustainable city distribution. City hubs capture and consolidate incoming deliveries from different cargo owners. Our technology then orchestrates sustainable smart city deliveries and bundle the flows based on their end customers. MixMove, a software solution.
So what I presented to you now is something that which is up and running in Europe. In the Netherlands, we are setting up this. And this is due to that you have really pioneers thinking differently. But to meet the climate goals, we need to combine forces. We need to use technology, but we also need to add change management into that. We need to think differently. We need to really stop, think, and then really handle. With the increase in the parcel shipment, the collaboration is key. So we need to start collaborating. We need to consolidate goods to utilize the transport mid, if it's electrical van or if it's a drone or what it is. It's easy to, like we saw in the impressive video with Yara Birkeland, it's doable, but we need to utilize the capacity which is there. So then you can utilize using the software for better orchestrate deliveries into the city and reduce emissions. So that was actually my talk. So thank you so much for listening in. And if you would like to connect, then I'm happy to do that.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you very much, Mr. Fredrik Ramstad, CEO from MixMove, talking about smart transportation. And with this third presentation, we come to an end of the case 3, where we talked about smart and sustainable transportation. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions and answers for Q&As. And due to the shortage of time, I will select one question to each panelist, to each participant. And I would like to start with Scania, with Mr. Tiago Matos. Tiago, as you did your presentation in Portuguese, I will ask you in Portuguese also. Tiago, a Scania é essa tecnologia que...
Tiago, in Scania, this technology for trucks and buses working with non-fossil fuels, with renewable fuels, is this technology applied to any country where Scania works, or depending on the region, depending on the country, this technology can be adapted according to regulations of the country. How does it work? Well, Leandro, this gas technology in Brazil today is regulated by ANP, the National Oil Agency, and also to biomethane. There is a requirement to comply with the requirements for the specifications of the fuel. So the product Scania that is produced here in Brazil and in Europe, they are the same. In terms of gas, I mean, the truck or the bus may use the natural gas or biomethane, or a mix of the two of them, provided they comply with the specifications of the regulatory agency of the country. Generally, the countries have similar regulations, not exactly the same, but they have similar regulations, and natural gas and biomethane has a minimum bioenergetic amount to be used in such a way that the product yields the expected. When we talk about biomethane, we have the biogas and biomethane, and biogas goes through an upgrade process to reach the methane, complying with the regulation, and then it is similar to the natural gas. And this way, the yield of the product is not impacted. So when you have a biomethane with the level of methane below 90 and about 85%, it impacts the yield and the performance of the product, may it be a bus or a truck. So we expect, or we suggest, those using biomethane to have that according to the regulations that are used for the natural gas as well. Thank you.
Well, I would like to move my next question to Mr. Nielsen, a managing director from Kongsberg Maritime. My question to you, Mr. Nielsen, well, you talked about a vessel that there was a planned date for this vessel to be under operation in 2020. Now, this date has been moved to the end of 2021, and the vessel will be delivered this week. And so in the meantime, what will happen to the vessel in this gap time between now until the end of 2021?
Well, the vessel itself, as you mentioned, it's not delayed, it's finished. The rest of the project is delayed. The two reasons: you have the coronavirus, and then you also have the IT structure for the logistic in the backside. But when it comes to the vessel itself, as it is a fully vessel tested according to class requirements, there's a group now of Kongsberg, together with the University of Southeast Norway and also NTNU, another university in Trondheim in Norway. We have submitted an application to the Norwegian government to be able to use the vessel to test, demonstrate, use it for research and development. I think Yara's president himself also have been out in the news in Norway stating that this vessel will be available for testing and research, also after they start the ordinary transportation. So this vessel will be then a useful asset for the cluster in Norway that is working with autonomous applications. And we in Kongsberg also have gone to great lengths to be able to use it now from this phase and going forward to test the communication with the VTS part in Norway with other vessel owners on this distance that this vessel will be going. So there are plans. We are looking into what we actually are allowed by the government to do before it's taken into fully service by Yara.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Another quick question I received from Dante Holanda from MCTI here in Brazil.
Yeah.
He's asking about the IATA Birkeland. The batteries are better than fuel cells for IATA Birkeland, the vessel? Which ones are better?
This I don't know. Then I need to go back to our engineers on the power side and ask them, and then I can come back with a question. I'll come back with the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to our next guest. I have a question to Mr. Frederik Ramstad, a CEO from MixMove. My question to you is, how does smart technologies for mobility can help to power up the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
It's due to that there are different goals that we see that people are moving into the big cities, and we see that the cities is growing. So you need to, and more of them. So the well-being of those cities is very important. And when you have in today's praxis is that each order has its own truck. It will be a challenge for the well-being of the citizens within the sustainable goals. So and they are also focusing on using more public transportation into the cities than what they normally have. And of course, with the technology, you can actually start using public transport also as a freight solution for the parcels, as long as you have visibility and collaboration on it. So the example that I provided was, okay, this is something that in the Netherlands and also now in Norway that they will start using. But the main thing is that if you are a good owner, or you own the goods and you're going to ship it to the customers, you need to collaborate with the different platforms that fits in within the sustainable goals of that city and how they will actually move on it. So I'm not sure in other countries, but if I look in my own country, they are taking away all the parking lots in the city. They are filling up with public transportation. So for a freight owner or for a person that is going to bring freight into the cities, it's very hard when you can't park anywhere. But they are taking those restrictions to make sure that they can have a greener environment.
From Scania, from...
I'm not sure who's... Geir Erik, did you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Okay. Okay, I'm so sorry. Well, with this third question, thank you very much for your answer, Frederik. And with this third question, I would like to end the presentation of case 3, smart and sustainable transportation. I would like to thank each one of you, to each panelist representing Scania, Kongsberg Maritime, and MixMove. Thank you all for your collaborations on this case 3. And I would like to give the floor back to you, Bruno. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I don't know if you can hear me. It seems that I have a small problem with my platform.
We can hear you, Bruno.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. So it seems that my image is frozen, but maybe it's a problem from my computer. Thank you very much, Leandro. Thank you very much, Knut, Frederik, Geir Erik, and Thiago Matos for your presentations. I think they were very valuable, very interesting to listen to. There was a question about the presentations. We're going to check with all the presenters if the presentations are available to share. And to all the participants, we are going to send an email. Thank you for your participation, and let you know if we can share the presentations and, of course, the link. For the conclusion of this webinar, we have the last presentation and the launching of the transportation logistics report that we have made in partnership with FGV Transportes. after realizing these changes already mentioned, for example, by Mixmove, after the pandemics, these changes in the transport sector in Brazil. So FGV Transportes made an excellent report on the current situation of the transportation sector, but also what is the expected changes and expected technologies that are planned to be adopted by the transportation players. So with that, we would like to welcome Mr. Professor Marcos Quintela, Director of FGV Transportes, for the last presentation.
Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. I think I'm able to speak in English, okay? If I could have difficulties, I ask for help, okay? Bruno, can you hear me?
Feel free to present. Okay. We have simultaneous translation, so
okay.
Feel free to present in the language. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank the Royal Norwegian Consulate General in Rio de Janeiro and Innovasjon Norge for the opportunity to carry out this important report entitled Overview of the Logistics Sector in Brazil. The report, next please, could you pass the slides please? Okay. The report is divided into 9 chapters. I can highlight 3 important chapters. Chapter 3 presents the current conditions of the Brazilian transport infrastructure by mode of transport. Chapter 4 shows the major logistics corridor projects that belongs to the official portfolio of the Brazilian federal government. And Chapter 5 presents the main production chains, soybean, oil and fuels, iron ore, sugarcane, beef, and automobiles. Okay, next. And next slide, please. According to the overall 2019-2020 competitiveness ranking among 18 countries, Brazil ranks next to last, ahead only of Argentina. This graph shows the competitiveness of Brazil in relation to infrastructure and logistics sphere, considering all the modes of transport assessed, road, rail, water, and air. Brazil is in the lower third of this ranking, in the 15th position out of the 18 countries selected for this listing. Next, please. Unfortunately, the investments in transport are declining since 2010. Investment in transport infrastructure continued downtrading in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, please. The Brazilian transport matrix is strongly unbalanced in favor of road mode. Of all cargo transported in Brazil, about 61% or more are transported by road. The Brazilian government believes that there may be a change in this scenario by 2025 with the probable investment in new railroads. Well, let's hope. No? Next, please. We can see that the concentration of transport modes is in the coastal region, where a large part of the Brazilian GDP is found. But there is a capacity for territorial integration. Next. These maps show the major logistics corridor projects that belongs to the official portfolio of Brazilian federal government that encompasses 119 projects and 90 policies under development in roads. rail, air, coastal shipping, and ports. Next, please. Let's talk about the main production chains. Considering the automobiles production chain is in 2019, our trade balance was negative by $2.9 billion, including auto parts, with exports of around $15.9 billion and imports reaching some $18.8 billion. Brazil has the second highest iron ore output all over the world. Next, please. Okay. Brazil is also the second highest beef output all over the world. But in terms of sugarcane and soybean outputs, we are the highest all over the world. Next. Main logistics players, okay? This slide shows the operators with the largest self-owned fleets active in Brazil, whose net profits are around $40 billion. Next. The next slides show the Brazilian logistics corridors. Here are the highways, railways, waterways, and ports by region of the country. Next, please. Here are the strategic logistics corridors for exporting soybeans, meal, and maize, and the strategic logistics corridor for domestic consumption. Next. And the last one, the logistics corridor for jet fuel, gasoline, and diesel, and biodiesel too. Okay, here are the logistics corridor for iron ore and pig iron exports, for sugar exports, and for ethanol domestic consumption. Next, please. Here are the logistics corridor for automotive exports chain and for the automotive chain of domestic consumption and imports. Next. Next. Next, please. Next. Okay. Technologies involved. The artificial intelligence impact on logistics businesses has become particularly important during the COVID-19 pandemic, with increased use and upgrades of cargo tracking apps. The report shows that there are many other solutions available on the market. Next, please. Let's talk about expectations for the post-pandemic period, which no one knows yet when it will be. But let's try. We present in the report some real and optimistic scenarios for investment in transport, infrastructure, and GDP growth. The first 6 months of 2021 will be decisive for adapting and migrating offline markets to online options, with a major restructuring process for the retail logistics sector. That's all in 10 minutes, okay? Thank you for listening. Okay? I have 10 minutes, okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation, your availability to be here. I know that you just arrived from a trip, so thank you very much to be available for this small presentation about this great report made by FGV Transportes for Innovation Norway.
The report has 132 pages about.
Yeah,
yes.
The complete report is quite extensive and very complete, and we will make that available later for our parties. And for concluding this excellent webinar with, I think we received a lot of information, very good insights, very good ideas and inspiration from both the Nordic companies and from the Brazilian startup association. And I believe we can really work together. I mean, combine the Norwegian competence, Norwegian startups with the Brazilian great startups as well. And since the fields that they are working in are quite similar and we have the same priorities. So for finalizing this webinar, I would like to invite Håkon Ward, the Director of Innovation Norway Brazil, to just give the final words and concluding this webinar. Håkon, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Bruno. I'm sorry. I haven't used my voice for a couple of hours, so but I will start my video so you can also see myself. Okay. Can you see me now, Bruno?
Yes, we can see you, Håkon. Yeah.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay. On behalf of Innovation Norway, I would like to say thank you to the speakers for sharing your insight and project experience today. For me, it has been some very interesting presentation, and I hope everyone has become as inspired as me after listening to the presentations. I also would like to address a special thank you to Johanna Brismar Skog, Swedish Ambassador for Brazil, for your opening words, and also a special appreciation to Professor Mr. Marcos Quintela, Director of FGV Transport, for the launching of their Transportation Logistics Sectorial Report. Thank you so much. We are living in times which are challenging for all of us. It does not matter if you live in one of the Nordic countries or in Brazil or in other regions of the world for that matter. The pandemic has hit all countries and challenges and restricts the way we interact with people, with friends and family, with colleagues, and we do not live our lives like we did beginning of this year. So companies and business communities must find other ways to reach out and connect. New technologies and solutions meet new needs in the market. So it makes perfect sense that our Tech Day this year goes digital, like we have done now. Almost 1 year ago, on the 26th of November, I had the pleasure to attend the Nordic Tech Day for the first time. It took place in Sao Paulo and was a physical event focusing on trust between institutions and individuals. Based on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the annual themes of the Nordic dialogues relate to specific sustainable development goals. And as you know, the Tech Day this year focused on smart sustainable solutions with participants of the 4 Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. The vision by the Nordic Prime Ministers is that the Nordic region will become the most sustainable and integrated region of the world by 2030. And by the way, did you know that the cooperation between the Nordic countries is the world's oldest regional partnership? So based on this, I think we should have the best conditions to succeed. But do we have unrealistic ambitions? No, I don't think so. The Global Cleantech Innovation Index shows the Nordic region has the strongest clean tech startup creation leadership. and a strong tradition on developing and implementing smart, sustainable solutions. So let me give you one example. Two companies, the Norway-based global aluminium company Hydro and Northvolt, a leading European battery manufacturer based in Sweden, announced the formation of a 50-50 joint venture to enable recycling of battery materials and aluminium from electric vehicles. Through Hydrovolt AS, the companies plan to build a pilot battery recycling plant, which will be the first of its kind in Norway. Hydrovolt plans to establish the recycling facility in Fredrikstad in Norway, with expected production start in 2021. So this is an example of an excellent collaboration between two Nordic countries and two Nordic companies. The development and implementation of smart, sustainable solutions is a global challenge. Green and innovative solutions have a global market, and the international business opportunities for Nordic companies with new and innovative solutions are great. In that respect, Brazil is already an important cleantech market globally, with a huge population and abundant sustainable resources. The country already is a world leader in clean energy. However, it has to deal with some challenges as urban planning, waste management, and mobility, as we have heard today. These conditions make Brazil a big potential adopter of smart, sustainable solutions. So with those words, I would like to welcome Nordic companies with the right technology, with a good strategy and a good business case to come to Brazil. And Innovasjon Norway is ready to give advice to Norwegian companies how to explore and understand the Brazilian market. And companies from the other Nordic countries will, of course, receive similar support from their business support institutions. So, welcome to Brazil. With that, I want to say thank you, muito obrigado a todos, for attending the webinar, and have a great rest of the day or evening. See you.
Thank you, Håkon. Thank you all. Thank you, Leandro. And also thank you all the Nordic partners. Jamila and Laura from the Danish Embassy, Leandro and Ana Carolina from the Swedish Embassy, the Ambassador Johanna Skog from Finland. Thank you, Sami. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you very much all, and thank you for all the participation of all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Bruno.